Hi, good afternoon. This is Mitchell Flaherty from B6 Real Estate. Today I'm with my partner, Rob Sedegapur from Stratco Property Solutions. Today we're going to be talking about energy efficiencies in buildings and building strategy, how to best manage that. So I'll take you to the first slide. Rob, take it away.
Thanks, Mitch. Mitch, you may want to put it into slideshow view just so the viewers can see the larger picture.
There we are.
All right, so basically 10 minutes, we're going to give the market an understanding of where the money is, why it's here, how long it's going to be here, and how you could basically underwrite projects to have the government be part of your capital stack. As we know, the federal government caught up to this in September with the Inflation Reduction Act. New York State got ahead on this when Trump stepped out of the Paris Accord. New York State stepped up and joined into it with their own climate plan. And since 2019, there's tremendous funding to decarbonize the building sector. Building sector is 80% of the carbon emissions. New York State's plan is to basically cut those carbon emissions by 85% by 2050. Most of the work on these buildings are going to be completed by 2030. That's where the opportunity is. So basically, anything you plug in, there's money available to have the government funded. So everything from lighting, HVAC. If you have a golf course, they will fund that as well. So let's go into specifics.
So yeah. How can you go about getting the incentives, and is it building type specific or?
So it's open to basically anything in the state that you're plugging in.
Okay.
Whether it's a vehicle or a building, they're going to fund for buildings. All building types have money available. There's a specific format on how they want applications done. It's first come, first serve. So speed is key. My clients that took their time with this, or they got stuck, they got hung up on specific details that they didn't want to consent to, they overwhelmingly got left with nothing. Speed is key, and accuracy of applications are key. Those are the two prerequisites.
So in terms of locations, it's New York wide?
It's throughout New York State. We're doing this from Montauk to Buffalo. Okay. New York City is the bulk of it. New York City right now, as of May, they're only funding incentives for existing buildings. New construction is out on almost everything. So if you have an older building, now's the time to use money to basically do work before the incentives dry out and you're forced to do it via compliance.
And why is the government funding this, apart from obvious reasons?
They want to decarbonize the environment. It's building a market. So by you doing this, they're building up a market. It's driving down the cost of doing it. And since they have laws in place where they're going to force you to do it, it's help expediting reaching that goal. The way they figure this out is basically for any type of incentives that they're funding, they have basically a 2 equity multiple that they're looking to achieve, which is basically the societal cost to the benefit.
Okay. And how does that relate to the owner of the building? You know, what's the typical payback period for an owner?
So I generally don't want to do any type of incentives where the payback is greater than 4 years. So you generally want to look for a 4-year payback. Our standard deviation on incentives are 5 to 40%. Median is probably 25%, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, sometimes meaningfully higher. So we have jobs that have gotten 80% funding.
Okay. Let's move on to the next slide.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay.
All right. So let's talk about the high level. We covered some of this on the previous slide, but there's incentives both from the state level and the federal level. Federal level or tax incentives. Tax credits in New York State is basically money back, so they're giving a check. The key is accuracy and knowing the program requirements. If you don't know the requirements or you're trying to take a shortcut, it's not going to work. because it's very paperwork intensive. You have to be ahead of the program to basically capitalize on it and know what direction it's going. You have to know what you want to pursue incentives for. And then doing an audit or a quick walkthrough to determining what you may benefit from is the first step. And then if you're pursuing stuff on the federal level, we have to have a tax strategy in place so you can capture all of those dollars.
So do you think that's why more landlords aren't executing this business strategy?
Yeah, so let's talk it through. The reason the market is not doing this throughout the industry is people, not enough of your friends have done it. That's basically the rule.
Yeah,
if a landlord's doing it, he probably heard about it from somebody else, or they're not focusing on it because they're buried with other issues at the building, and this is not a big enough line item to put focus on.
But particularly with like, from my experience, we're dealing with smaller multifamily owners in the Bronx. They're buried in rent stabilized DHR paperwork, so it's like the thought, and they have headaches with managing these buildings. So the thought of trying to do something else paper management intensive is just, they can't fathom the thought of that.
That's correct. Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Okay. So we covered this slide. Okay. So this is a 67-unit elevator building in Kingsbridge section of the Bronx that we're currently selling. Rob, do you want to talk us through some?
Yeah, so basically we have basically a guidebook on how we're executing stuff like this. So this building, you've got unused real estate on the roof. You've got an LMI, you probably have an LMI component, a low to moderate income component in the rents and the occupancy. So basically, disadvantaged communities and buildings with an LMI component, they get a kicker with the incentives, which increases it by a third of what it normally would be. The third is a rule of thumb. It could be more, it could be slightly less, but basically disadvantaged areas or buildings with low rents, they get added incentives because they want to see more work being done on those buildings.
So it seems like an area of the Bronx with a lot of multifamily product that's rent stabilized with a lot of roof square footage. This is a great opportunity for some landlords.
So let's talk it through. So you got the roof. What we're generally seeing is we're replacing those roofs. We're putting solar on. We're generally wiping out the common area electric. Then we're doing envelope measures, which are window replacements, insulation, and then boiler upgrades to decrease. So basically the goal is to decrease the demand for heating by improving the envelope and improving the efficiency of the gas-fired heating systems. Okay. So you got that, you got the solar. That's basically the blueprint that we have on our multifamily stock.
So is there any downside or anything that can go wrong with that application potentially? Yeah,
so what goes wrong is a lack of focus. If we're not committed, and especially the first projects are the most cumbersome for owners. So that first project, we need to have a standing call once a week to make sure this is being pushed through. That's the biggest challenge, is that people give up or they get distracted with something else. My clients that did it on one, they're doing it on others. It's the first one that has the biggest learning curve.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Okay. So giving you another example, this is a 12,000 square foot industrial building, sold last year. It was vacant.
So this one's clear. We got a different handbook than multifamily. You got a large footprint on the roof. You probably have a few parking spots. So we're doing net leases for battery storage, which is basically downloading power at night, selling it back to the grid. We're seeing net leases between $50,000 to $150,000 on those parking spots, and then we're doing a roof lease between $10,000 to $20,000 on the roof. So those are the two items on industrial.
What's the installation cost be for this typical example?
No, so if you're doing a net lease, there's no you're not responsible for the installation.
Okay. This is another vacant office building we're currently selling in Harlem.
So So this is slightly different than the multifamily. This building, the tenant can be responsible for the heating and cooling. So we have access to an incentive program where we can have approximately a third of the HVAC upgrade to electrification be funded by a state program. We want to tighten the envelope. There's an opportunity to tighten the envelope to decrease the demand for heating with window upgrades and insulation. And if you're keeping the building on gas, there's incentives also available for upgrading the heating plant.
Okay. So you want to talk through, give a breakdown of an example?
Yeah, so here's an example. We did heat pumps in a building. We outlined the material and labor costs. We got an incentive on this top project for $45,000. We could have enhanced it further, but we were late in the game as far as the design. But the owner was able to capture a $45,000 incentive. We outlined the carbon savings on the estimate, and then below are basically a sample of the incentives received, the energy savings saved, captured by those buildings with the upgrades, and the percentage of the incentive to cost for those buildings as well.
Okay. They sound like some great incentives, particularly in a market where it's difficult to create and add value. This seems like an obvious option to explore.
Yeah, this is something that's available today. My clients that are focused on this full time are benefiting tremendously, but this will be gone in the next couple of years. So it's here now. We're also able to get 100% financing by the utility in certain territories for your out-of-pocket costs with 0% financing. So the faucet is open. Those that are benefiting from it are doing so, and those that aren't will be late in the game towards
why will the door be closed in a couple of years?
There's a budget available for this.
Okay.
And there's a goal by the state to decrease demand by 2025. So once we hit those targets, whether it's before or at that date, they're going to move the budget dollars towards a different initiative.
Okay. This sounds like it has a bit more of a wider agenda and tied in with the local law 97 and just the general electrification and decarbonation of. Yeah,
they're all tied together towards the Climate Protection Act of 2019.
Okay, great. Well, I did share our contact information for anyone that wants to reach out to myself or Rob. Sounds like a great opportunity to take advantage of. But we will be back again with a different topic, and look forward to connecting soon. Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.